we'll get started here. Thank you so much for joining us. This is being recorded for posterity. So we'll have this up later for if other folks want to view it. I want to welcome everyone to our 2024 online project open house to talk about streets projects. I'm Nick Burgess, City of North Liberty's Community Relations Director. And every time I look over at the giant pile of thank you notes, I'm reminded that we skipped an annual tradition last year. We didn't have any big, inconvenient road construction projects. We also did not actually receive any thank you notes. I blame the oversight on the big projects on the retirement of our longtime city engineer. But this construction season, which will get underway shortly and will last until snow late in the fall, we'll get back at it. Projects this year include permanent traffic signals along Forevergreen at Kansas and Jones, a few points along Penn Street, in addition to the state DOT getting ready for some big bridge replacement. You've already seen their work out there. Also on the docket, we're going to open up our permanent new city hall in the heart of town, break ground on the first phase of Centennial Park's next stage project in July, and other projects. You can find overviews of all of these projects at northlibertyiowa.org/projects. You can also subscribe to updates, including closure notices at northlibertyiowa.org/subscribe. And you can send all of your thank you notes and questions and complaints to me at nburgess, it's NBERGUS, at northlibertyiowa.org. And I'll have a slide with my contact information later on. Before we go on, I do want to introduce the other folks that are on here with us. We have Michael Pentecost with the City of North Liberty. He's our street superintendent. We have Josiah Bilskemper, who is with Shive Hattery, and our city engineer, our new one. He's still figuring out how to make everyday's life hell. And then Michael Janicek, who is a project engineer on most of these street projects, and will also be inconvenienced by many of them himself this year. We'll go through 4 projects today and leave some time for questions at the end. But I did want to start off at the top by answering one of the most frequent questions that we get. When will we complete Rancho Way, known to many as Highway 965? Josiah, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Can you, when will we finish Rancho Way?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. It's the last phase of the Rancho Way project. It's the missing piece, as it's often referred to. What we're looking at, I think, is it's kind of a lengthy design process. It's a project with DOT federal money, so there's a lot of steps to go through. We're looking at design for that to start and get underway in the next year or so through 24 and 25. What that means with a project of that scope and magnitude, after that, there's a lot of work necessary to relocate utilities, put things underground, move things out of the way. There's often property acquisition easement items to work out to make it all happen, which takes part of another month. So we're thinking at this point, we'd probably bid that in late 2026 through the DOT, that contractors would put bid numbers on, and then most likely we're looking at first thing 2027 to get that road torn up and rebuilt and finish that connection.
Yeah, and I think it's important to let folks know that at this point, we don't know what kind of closures that will have or any of those details. That all comes during the planning process. So if you ask us questions about how inconvenient that project will be, I can't tell you yet. Is that fair, Josiah?
That's fair.
Perfect. And then before we get into the other projects, I did want to just talk about sort of how does a project sort of get on the docket. Michael, Mr. Pentecost, we've got 2 Michaels. This is confusing for me. Sorry. Michael P. Going to do Michael P. We can do Michael P. How do we go about identifying projects and getting them slotted in?
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a number of ways that we identify projects. First of all, we identify the needs. Are we seeing issues throughout the city's network of roads or do we think there's going to be issues, say, as a school comes online or subdivision comes online? So all those play into how we identify where that need is. Additionally, funding, as Josiah mentioned, with Rancho Way Phase 6, that ties into that timeline of how we identify the time frame when those projects will operate or begin. Third, sometimes we just have areas that pop up as damaged roads or needing infrastructure rebuilt. One of those areas this year is Sugar Creek Lane. We've got about a 500-foot stretch in that section of road that was not on a CIP 5-year plan, was not on the radar to get done this year, but it has damage and needs attention put to it. So it's through a variety of things of City Hall staff, our staff out in the field, our engineers, and our financing, and all that play into time frame of when roads have construction on them and when they don't.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. And then once something gets into the CIP, the Capital Improvements Plan, which is our 5-year plan that gets approved as part of our budget every year. Once that project comes up, Josiah, what happens next?
Yeah, so the next steps would be, a project gets approved, the council approves it and sets aside money for it. We usually start with what you'll see surveyors out on site doing field work, gathering data on elevations and grades and trying to figure out where everything is, say on a roadway project. And there's a lot of work to identify property lines and property boundaries and make sure where the city's property is and where individual properties are. Another big push for that's important is working with Iowa One Call and getting all the utilities marked and located, trying to untangle all that mess of where everything is underground so that we have an accurate idea. And then we take that map of where we think everything is, and that's when we start getting into the design of a project, whether it's a road reconstruction or a trail or a sanitary sewer run. Lots of different projects, but we need to identify how to design it, what the design standards are for the state of Iowa. So that's kind of the process we're going through. As we go through that design, we'll do multiple check-ins with city staff, at different stages as we develop that project to review, make sure we're taking in all the feedback, like for example, from Michael with the streets department, make sure we're coordinated on what they're seeing and what other projects they have. So we have multiple meetings with city staff to review that. Ultimately, as that's refined, we end up with a final design and a final construction set, which then goes out to bid, which is that means that those plans and the details go out to contractors, they review them. They will then submit a bid, which is their cost to do all that work. When we get all those bids back, we'll prepare a summary of everything we received. That goes, again, back to the city council. So they see the results, and then they have an opportunity to take action to award the construction contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder through that process. Generally, once that's done, there's a little bit of lag time as we wait for the proper construction season for things to get started. And at that time, we'll have a pre-construction meeting, work out all the dates, work with Michael and you for issuing public notices on when things are going to start and when traffic is going to be impacted, things like that. So, and then it's into the construction. That's when everybody sees what's going on and, like you said, experiences some of those disruptions to their daily life. Yeah.
Thank you, Josiah. So we are going to move into some of those projects now. We're going to talk about 4. Hold on, let me pull this up. All right. There we go. Can everybody see that? Here is, we're going to be talking about 4 projects today. They're listed over there on the left. West Penn Street street improvement. It's on the far west side. That one's gonna start first and getting underway here real soon. We're gonna be doing some work around the Penn Street Railroad crossing. That'll happen this summer. The Forevergreen Road signalization improvements at those two intersections at Kansas and at Jones. Jones obviously has those temporary ones up. Kansas currently doesn't have any. That'll start happening this fall and this summer and go into fall. And then a fun one that won't cause any impact to your commute or drive times is the Fox Run Park Pond Trail improvements, and we'll talk about that one here in just a bit. So let's start here with we're going to start here with the West Penn Street, and Michael J., you want to take us through what we're doing out there?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So this is a project that's been coordinated with Johnson County since a lot of this area is outside of the city limits. This is basically where Penn Street, west of town, drops off from a concrete pavement, goes to chip seal. This is reconstructing that stretch of roadway through the James Avenue intersection. That's that first intersection to take that heading south winding road that leads you to Tiffin. This project reconstructs 100 feet north onto James Avenue, 250 feet south onto James Avenue, and then 100 feet west of the James Avenue intersection on Penn Street. This one is Peterson Contractors, PCI. They do a lot of work around the area. They'll be starting that one up here in the next couple of weeks. They'll be starting that April 15th. This project is a full closure. So for the duration of the project, Penn Street, west of town, will be fully closed to through traffic. There is a pretty lengthy detour to get out and around. The sign detour will basically go down James Avenue, out and around, down into Tiffin, onto Oakdale, and then back over on Forevergreen, back up to Kansas. There is an additional detour for the intersection work that's going to be happening at the James Avenue intersection. While that is under construction, there'll be a little bit of a relocated detour onto Half Moon and 260th Street, which is a gravel portion of detour. Some important elements of this project are it's a 75 working day project. So that means, the contractor has 75 days of work to complete it. That basically means if it's raining, they're not getting charged a working day. So it's one of those things that gets a little bit misleading. So the projects do stretch out longer than 75 days per se. There is a critical closure of the James Avenue intersection, and what that means is once that James Avenue intersection on this project gets closed, there are 40 calendar days for them to get that reopened back to traffic, since we all realize it's a messy detour, and adding in gravel roads to it just makes it increasingly messy. Some of the big perks of this project will be, the chip seal pavement out there has a lot of failing areas, and there's also, there's no shoulders. It's kind of a tight, uncomfortable road. The ditches drop off very steeply right off the sides of the road. So the new road will add in 4-foot paved shoulders, 4-foot earth shoulders. This is very similar to how North Liberty Road is out by the high school. And it will also take those ditch slopes and shallow those out a little bit, making it kind of up to speed with what design standards are, and improving upon the safety of that road.
Michael, I think it's also important for us to remind folks that there are incentives in this project for the contractor to finish this work early. So there is an incentive of cash. There is additional payment to them available if they get the work done ahead of schedule.
Yep. There's incentives for basically the tail end of summer for this project to be completed. And there's additional incentive for this James Avenue intersection component of the project. So lots of pressure on the contractor to get this one completed as soon as possible.
Perfect. Now, we did have a couple questions about this project. The first question was, are there plans to move the large steel SIPCO pole that's out there? I believe the answer to that is no, that is an installed pole, and this project works around that really carefully. The other question was, are there plans to make this intersection a four-way stop with flashing lights or other plans to address vehicle safety concerns? Now, the first thing is we do pull data on this. We don't have any, our PD doesn't have any record of any vehicle crashes in this intersection. Is there any intent to add any to have any additional stop signs out here?
As part of this project, no, it would be a similar situation as is today. Again, this intersection is in the county, so that would be a little bit more coming from the county's discretion on that. But nothing to date, no plans to date.
Great. I will reserve time at the end, of course, to finish up this, but I do want to move on to the next project, unless you have more on this one. Nope. Good. All right. Let's move. So we're now going to move to our signalization. Nope. I'm sorry. We're going to move to our railroad crossing project, which is all the way over here. Where this is a pretty straightforward one, obviously inconvenient, but what do we got going on here?
So this one, the gist of it is, everybody's aware of the kind of the rising up the hill and falling into the giant pothole that is immediately east of the railroad tracks. It's very uncomfortable driving over that. This project replaces that pavement through that area and raises up those storm structures a little bit to minimize that drop as much as possible, and just repairs the damaged pavement in the area. The other big one that's part of this is the trail along the south side of the road. Currently is 8 feet, and then it necks down to about 6 feet as it crosses the railroad tracks. This will widen that out to 8 foot all the way through, just to put a consistent section through there, along with replacing the sidewalk on the north side, as you can see, just to make that a smoother grade transition and just a little bit smoother alignment as well. This project is slated for this summer. Midwest Concrete will be the contractor. So this one, the project basically has a summertime slot. So the contractor can start this project anytime after June 10th, and it needs to be completed by August 16th. And once they start the project, though, they have 21 working days. Sorry, 15. Nope. Sorry, lost my notes. You have 15 working days to achieve substantial completion. Yes, so three weeks to complete the project. One thing to note on this one, clearly this is a working day project again. So weather could draw that out a little bit. So it'd be safe to say this project will take around a month. But everybody realizes this one is a very big inconvenience with it being a popular through route through town. So there are also incentives for the contractor to complete this one early as well.
Yeah. And we've talked a little bit about working days versus calendar days a couple of times. And just to be clear for folks, as you mentioned at the top, a working day is a weekday where they have good weather, right? And we have folks on site that keep track of if the contractor's working and if the conditions allow for the work to happen. A calendar day project is a much more predictable one in that it has a set time frame. We're talking about days on a calendar. That includes weekends, that includes rain days. But those are a little bit harder to control for. And so we hold those for specific and special cases. All right, we've got a short detour on this one. We have a detour on this one. I won't say if it's short or not. It's what you think it will be, right? It's using Dubuque and Ranshaw to get around that intersection or that.
Yeah.
crossing.
And it's important to note on this one. So what's shown on this sheet is this is the signed detour. All the other side roads around the area will still be open. So this is just more so, we have to sign a detour for the project,
Yeah.
but local traffic can still go down to Cherry Street. They can still take Stewart Street. They can take all the other roads around.
Yeah, so this is the sort of thing we need because we've got folks that are coming through North Liberty to go out to the reservoir or the lake with campers and things like that. And they might take this route. And we need to get them there. But if Cherry Street's a good east-west street, that works well. Michael, can you talk just a little bit too about obviously working around railroads is a little bit even more complicated than just any other project, just with the coordination with the railroad. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in this project, this is on Crandick Railway. They will be installing one of their precast crossing panels that are in the railroad tracks that people drive over. And an additional one is going to be installed to allow for that trail to widen out through there. But in terms of railway coordination and that kind of thing, there's additional insurance and safety training and just extra coordination that's necessary, along with there's derailment protections that Crandick has to install for this work to occur. This is more or less like a service spur for the railroad. It's not their major thoroughfare, so it does have a very low volume of train traffic, but the derailment protections are just devices put on the tracks by Crandick to kind of say, hey, no trains can come through in this area, and then when trains do come through, they remove them and then they go back out again, which is kind of the handoff to, hey, it's safe to work in this area now for the contractor. So Crandick has been very involved with the coordination through this project and will continue to be involved just for everybody's safety and everybody's awareness, especially since Crandick owns that crossing.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then let's talk a little bit about these new signal projects, which people have asked about a number of times down here on Forevergreen Road. Again, we're going to talk about the two spots. We're going to talk about the one at Jones and the one at Kansas. They are one project, but they're in two different intersections. So let's start here with the Jones Boulevard one. This is the one that currently has temporary signals and has had those for a couple of years now. What do we got going on here?
So this one, as Nick, you just alluded to, this is putting permanent traffic signals at the Jones Boulevard intersection to replace those temporary signals. One of the neat things about this one, we are also adding turn lanes on Jones Boulevard on both sides of the intersection. As we've all experienced driving through town, that intersection starts to back up now during some of the more peak traffic times. So there'll be basically a dedicated left turn lane that's developed on Jones Boulevard. This also replaces and kind of realigns the sidewalk geometry and crosswalks and get those all up to be ADA compliant. This will have new pedestrian push buttons, and it'll also restripe through the intersection. This project is the conglomerate of the Kansas and Jones intersection. This will be by Eastern Iowa Excavating and Concrete. It's planned for this summer. It will likely be later in the summer. The project has a late start date of July 15th. It's basically all the signal components typically have a really long lead time. That's very specialized equipment, so it takes a little while from the time of a contractor ordering it before it actually gets on site. So realizing that, we don't want the contractor to just rip everything up and then sit around waiting on getting signals in. So basically the project is just put off until everything's ready to go, and then kind of hit the go button, and then they can pave and put all those signals up all at one time.
Great. And then let's flip over to the other intersections. This is at Kansas. What's going on here?
So this is very similar. So this is placing new sidewalk around the intersection, getting all those crossings ready to go for basically for the future, and kind of making it so pedestrians can safely cross that road. The biggest component of this one, we are putting signals at the Kansas intersection. I know everybody who's driven that, especially coming from Kansas, it's a very uncomfortable intersection to turn really either way. So this should help improve upon the safety there. But yeah, this one's basically just like the Jones one, only we are not adding the turn lanes anywhere. We are restriping through the intersection a little bit. As we previously said, this is part of the Jones intersection as a whole project. Important things to note: both intersections, traffic will be maintained through the full duration of the project. There'll be some miscellaneous lane closures while some of this work is occurring, and particularly at the Jones intersection, there'll be some kind of narrow lanes and maybe some more uncomfortable pass-through driving situations. So, during construction, it'd be recommended to avoid the area if possible. But, through thoroughfares will still remain. So everything will still be open to traffic.
And, one of the questions that we get is, when will we complete trail along there to connect it to the existing trail over by Covered Wagon and Fox Valley? Part of the trick in this is that part of this is through Coralville. The south side of the street is in Coralville, so there's some coordination that we'll need to do there. But this also will allow us to do some work on that north side, and pedestrians to get through that area a little bit more safely when we do complete that work. Great. Anything else you want to add there, Michael?
I don't think I touched on it. This one, for perspective compared to the other ones, this one is a 60 working day project. So it's, a little bit smaller in scope, since it's mostly just the turn lanes and that kind of thing, and then the signals. So it is a little bit smaller. This one would be assumed to go from basically late summer through the fall. A lot of that will just be dictated on signal equipment availability and lead time.
Great. All right, one last one we're going to talk about here today before we get to questions, and that's the Fox Run Pond Trail improvements. It's more than just trail improvements, though. So we'll start here. Here's our layout. Josiah, I think you were gonna take us through this one, though it's pretty straightforward. Yep. I know Guy Goldsmith, our Parks Director, has been working with neighborhood ambassadors in the neighborhood in this area on this. So what are we doing in this area?
Well, this project's been on the Parks Department sort of long range plan for a while, and its time has come. So this is going to build a trail. The green line work you see is a new 6-foot wide concrete trail that's going to go around the Fox Run Pond and through there. The nice thing, this will connect. There's some existing sidewalk stubs in that neighborhood that sort of stub out into the green space. We're connecting to each of those to the trail. It will also connect to the wide sidewalk on Scales Bend and Pheasant Lane. And then up there at the top of the screen, there's a note for a future playground area. Yep, right there. So the contractor who's doing this work and building this trail will build that sort of rectangular green outer boundary, like concrete boundary, and that's where the Parks Department is going to put in that new playground equipment inside of that.
Yeah, we've got some renderings of that. We're not adding huge mature trees around it, but this is the rendering of what will be going in that space. This is a new structure that they'll install.
So that outer band that you see on some of those images is kind of representative of the concrete walk that the trail contractor will build, and then Guy's crew will do the inside there.
Mm-hmm. And this is a very similar setup to other parks with that concrete around, and then a poured in place base. We'll also be moving. Guy wanted me to mention that we're moving to poured in place in as many spots as we can. So Penn Meadows Park, that newer playground there, the mulch will come out, and that'll have a poured in place pad here this summer too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that one's pretty straightforward. Anything else you want to touch on here, Josiah?
The timing on that one, that would start after school as well for that park project, and they need to be done by September 4th. And there's a little coordination there between the contractor and getting this playground surround done earlier, so the guy's crew has time to come in and get his work done. So,
yep, he's hoping to have that install that in August, so it'll be ready by the end of the summer.
Correct.
Okay, great. Well, okay, we're going to move on to some Q&A. I suppose I don't need to have my big thing up that says Q&A. So if anybody on the call has a question, go ahead and you can raise your hand, and we'd be happy to take your question if you've got one. Yeah, Bob. You should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question, Bob.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Nick. My name is Bob Young, and gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity to join you in this presentation. It was very well done, and thank you for your clarification. My concern is what I believe you read earlier, Nick, and that is the safety of the intersection at West Penn and James Avenue. As proposed, it appears there's going to be this widening of the roadway and including that intersection. And as you said, you're going to carefully protect the Zipco pole at that intersection. Do you know, by the way, what the dimension of that pole is at the base, what the diameter is?
You're talking to the people who drew things with measurements. I bet they couldn't find it. I don't know off the top of my head.
I couldn't find it online. I looked all through the petition for this. That would be E22387 that Zipco had before the IUB, and it's not listed there that I could find. And I looked for the Johnson County Secondary Road Department's permit for this docket as well, and for this line and for this pole in particular. I can't seem to find it. I don't know. I mean, as I drive by, it looks like it's pretty big. I don't know how big it is. I wondered if you gentlemen, being experts, would know.
Based on what we have surveyed and what we can view from like our drone imagery from our survey, it looks like the base of that footing of that big one that's right on the corner is about 10 feet. Okay,
well, that's helpful to know. So a 10-foot diameter, and we can come back perhaps to why it is that it's there. But my concern is this: it's a safety issue that I raised, fellas, and that's if you're coming north on James Avenue at that intersection, and you stop where the stop sign is before the intersection, and if you look west along what I guess would be F28, but also West Penn Street, however you want to designate it. As you look west, that 10-foot diameter base pole blocks the view, does it not? Looking at approaching traffic. Am I correct or am I incorrect in that? You can't see it from where you're stopped in your car if you try to look to the left. I have a photo. Yeah. I don't know how to.
Bob, why don't we do this?
Share that with you, but I could if you want me to send you an email. Bob, I can show you my screen right now if you want to see it.
Bob, let me suggest this. Let me put my contact information up on the up here in just a sec, and you can email that to me, and I'll put you in contact with the county folks.
I've been in contact with them already, Nick. I thought I'd ask you since you guys are having the meeting. I thought I would, but I just wanted to know because you said that. There've been no reports by the PD. I suspect that's North Liberty PD is what you mean by PD.
Yep.
And North Liberty PD, of course, patrols that area. But if you say it's a Johnson County concern because it's in Johnson County, it's not yet in North Liberty annexed land. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
It's patrolled by North Liberty Police, and no accidents to date have been reported. Is that?
That is correct. That's correct.
Well, my concern, and what I think I wrote to you and you read out, is would there be any consideration of putting up a four-way stop or flashing lights or maybe a warning sign?
Yeah.
At least for those coming up on James Avenue when they're looking left and looking west to say, look out for cars that you can't see coming.
For sure.
And I'm just asking that, because I'm interested in road safety for a variety of reasons, but that's my question to you. And I'll try not to take too much more of your time. I appreciate it, fellows, being able to ask this question.
Absolutely.
But I understand at another committee, at another presentation in front of North Liberty City Council, I believe, a local resident of the area who's also concerned about this intersection had raised a question about the safety of this intersection. And another person I know that lives in the area said the same thing, that they don't allow their teenage children to drive by that intersection because of safety concerns. There's for the people who live in the area who know that intersection, who travel to Tiffin along that road,
Yeah.
from North Liberty and from north and west, they know that's an unsafe intersection. I mean, they know it. And so they're dang careful when they go through that intersection not to get hit by a car. So as traffic safety trained individuals, which I am not a subject matter expert, nor am I an engineer. I don't know anything compared to you guys with the expertise. I'm just raising the question, should this be on your plate to look at and to be concerned about, and to actually say, well, it's not just a Johnson County issue. As I understand it, North Liberty is funding at least part of this this roadway construction.
We are. Yes.
What amount is this going to be? I lost track of what the count. What's it going to cost to redo this?
What's the total cost?
Yeah.
Let me pull that up.
And then how much is North Liberty contributing, and how much is Johnson County contributing?
You know, I don't have. I didn't
Nick,
bring the breakdown.
I do have that. If you
please do.
So the low bid on this was about just over 940,000 for the overall construction. The breakdown based on who owns what out there is about 2/3 of that is Johnson County, and 1/3 is North Liberty. So North Liberty is sharing some of the Penn Street roadway, approximately half of it, up to a certain point, and then Johnson County is covering all the costs for the intersection improvements.
I see.
And all the side legs there.
Does that include the condemnation, eminent domain cost as well of obtaining property on the north side of West Penn Street that you're having to expend in order to, quote, preserve the ZIPCO pole that is situated there? Because there's no way to expand the roadway in that direction. So you're going to have to, is my understanding correctly that the roadway is requiring a further taking of land along the north side of the highway, or the north side of West Penn Street?
That's
because
correct.
of the presence of that pole.
There are some acquisitions there. None of it was through eminent domain. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought it was an eminent domain procedure. Okay, so it was an acquisition. How much did that cost? Is the city paying for it? Is the county paying for it? Who's paying for that?
Those are shared costs as well, Bob.
And how much was that in total, Nick?
I don't have that in front of me. I apologize, but
maybe you can send that to me in the email.
I've got that on the screen. Will you reach out to me there?
Yeah,
I'd like to. We can get you that email. We can get you that information.
I see. Well, but is it true, and am I misunderstanding that the reason for that acquisition of land was to accommodate the pole, which you said is going to be carefully protected? I believe those were your words.
No, the pole is not. The acquisitions are all based on the actual road work, to my understanding.
But the road work preserves that pole, even though there's going to be ditch improvements in that area and
That's
grading
correct.
and so forth. SIPCO has insisted that any damage to that pole would be at the cost of North Liberty to bear, or Johnson County. Whoever causes damage to that pole would be a cost borne. And was there a memorandum of understanding document signed in that regard between either North Liberty or Johnson County to SIPCO to protect the interests of the pole?
I don't know that off the top of my head, Bob. Why don't we? I'm going to push you to give me a call or an email, and I'm happy to answer any questions you've got.
I appreciate it. I just want you to reconsider, please, the safety issues and consider putting up at least maybe a warning flag or a sign or something that this is an intersection you can't see to the west, and maybe even consider making it into a four-way stop as a safety engineering solution to this dilemma.
So one of the things with this intersection too, with the project, the actual center point of the road at the intersection is shifting up another couple of feet, and with placing a stop bar on the road, actually showing where you can stop, that actually ends up being 10 feet in front of where that SIPCO pole is, so closer to Penn Street. So the apparent, site obstacle, checking site distance requirements and everything on that one. It helps with that matter and should make it a little bit more comfortable from a viewing there, because we all know that it's kind of an uncomfortable situation at that intersection right now. So this project will definitely improve upon that.
Right. Well, I appreciate that you mentioned the word uncomfortable too, and you mentioned the Kansas intersection with Forevergreen Road. It is uncomfortable there. I agree, and even the Jones Avenue intersection. But I noticed that signage is going to be put up. In fact, there's going to be actual stop sign or stop lights at those intersections. So I just would ask for the same kind of consideration and safety concerns be extended to this intersection as well. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Bob. Are there any other questions for folks on the call? If not, well, thank you so very much for joining us today on our 2024 online project open house to talk about streets and one park. Obviously, we've got a lot going on this summer, and we've got a lot going on in North Liberty all the time, and we appreciate you joining us. Let me put my contact information up one more time. I'm happy to answer questions that folks shoot me. There's my contact information. Feel free to copy that down. You can northlibertyiowa.org/projects. There's a place you can also form there. You can enter questions there. My phone number in the office is there, as well as my email address. Happy to answer questions. If I don't have the answer, I'm happy to help make sure you get it. So thank you again for joining us. I appreciate everybody who came. I'm going to leave that up for just a little bit more, and then we will move on. Thank you so much again for joining us for this project open house, and we look forward to seeing you around North Liberty again real soon. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.